There's a certain kind of tiredness that no amount of sleep can fix. You rise from bed, yet it feels like you've already fought an entire war before sunrise. Your limbs move through the routines, but your spirit feels shackled. Something weighs on your chest, something unspoken, yet ever present. Around you, everything seems in place. Coffee brews, the phone pings with updates, tasks line up like soldiers awaiting orders. But deep inside, you're dragging something heavy. And what if I told you it wasn't just exhaustion? What if this sensation wasn't simply weariness, but something deeper, more corrosive? You're not lazy, you're not incapable. You're living in a structure that feeds off your constant motion, your endless striving. A world that sells ambition as virtue and productivity as salvation. Yet in doing so, it's slowly stripping away your soul. You've been taught that rest is weakness, that slowing down is for the unmotivated, that silence equals failure. That's the great trick of modern life. It doesn't restrain you with visible chains anymore. There are no loud commands, no overseers looming. Instead, the voice urging you to push harder now whispers from within. That voice that urges you to keep going isn't always your own. It's the echo of a system disguised as freedom, one that rewards those who perform the best, never mind the cost. And when you stumble, when you need a moment to breathe, when you feel lost, the blame doesn't land on anyone else. It falls squarely on you. Because they told you, didn't they? You could be anything. You could achieve it all. So why aren't you? This new era doesn't shackle you physically. It doesn't scream at you to obey. Instead, it offers you the illusion of limitless opportunity. And behind that glittering promise hides a brutal truth. When everything is your choice, then every shortcoming becomes your burden. And what was once oppression imposed by others now lives rent-free in your head. There was a time when control was clear-cut. You followed orders or faced the consequences. There were boundaries and rules, and punishment followed disobedience. That world, as harsh as it was, at least made its rules known. But now, the game has changed. The rules are hidden, and the expectations are infinite. Nobody says you can't rest. Nobody stops you from taking a break, but the world around you never really lets you. Because if you pause, you fall behind. If you breathe, someone else overtakes you. And that fear, that ever-present fear, is what keeps you running. You're no longer an employee. You've become a brand, a walking portfolio, a self-run enterprise that never closes. And with that comes endless hustle. Self-improvement is no longer a choice, it's a duty. Even your hobbies need to be productive. Even your downtime must have a purpose. Meditation? Great. Just make sure it increases your focus. Reading? Only if it advances your goals. Resting? Only if it recharges you for more work. It's not just that you're tired. It's that you're never allowed to truly stop. Your value has been tied to output, your worth measured by efficiency. And when the machine falters, when your body breaks down or your mind can't keep up, you don't feel sympathy for yourself. You feel shame, because you think you should be stronger. You think you should be able to handle it. But here's the paradox. You are both the worker and the taskmaster, the driver and the driven. And that dual role is tearing you apart. You've internalized the pressure so deeply that even when no one is watching, you still perform. Even when you're alone, you rehearse excellence. The line between who you are and what you do has blurred, maybe even vanished. You can't tell where the job ends and where you begin. And that's not an accident. That's how the system was designed. It wants you always on, always reachable, always grinding. It cloaks that desire in motivational slogans and cheerful affirmations. Be your best self. Hustle harder. You've got this. They sound empowering, but they're anything but. because they mask an unrelenting demand. Never stop, always climb, always improve. And if you're not doing that, you're wasting time, you're falling behind. You've been sold the idea that success is a straight line, that happiness is the reward at the end of endless optimization. But the more you chase it, the more it eludes you. Because the system was never designed for you to win. It was designed to keep you running. And so you measure every moment against a scale of usefulness. You can't even enjoy peace without turning it into another project. You don't relax, you prepare, you don't reflect, you strategize. Even your dreams are monetized. The saddest part, you've begun to believe this is normal. You've normalized the anxiety, the restlessness, the persistent sense of falling short. You wear your fatigue like a badge of honor. You boast about how busy you are. You smile through the burnout, convinced that everyone else has it together and you're the only one falling apart. But look closer and you'll see it's not just you. This is a collective unraveling. This isn't a personal failure. It's a societal illness. The human mind wasn't built for endless acceleration. The soul wasn't meant to be a machine. But try telling that to a world that glorifies output over well-being. Try telling that to a system that rewards those who grind until they break and punishes those who dare to pause. And the cost? It's staggering. Anxiety is soaring. Depression is no longer rare. Burnout is now expected, not exceptional. You've likely felt it. The moments where you just go numb, when your mind feels like fog and your heart can't find meaning. You're not just physically depleted, you're emotionally hollowed out. You're running on fumes. But let's take a moment here. Let's acknowledge the truth you've known all along, but maybe never said out loud. You are not failing. You're surviving a system designed to exhaust you. You are not broken. You are reacting, appropriately, even bravely, to a life model that asks too much and gives too little. Your body, your mind, your emotions, they're all sounding the alarm. They're begging you to stop. Not because you're weak, but because this pace is unnatural. And that guilt you feel, that nagging sense that you should be doing more, fixing yourself, trying harder, that's not your voice. That's the echo of performance culture, drilling its expectations into your core. You've been conditioned to feel uneasy during rest, to panic in silence, to fill every gap with noise or motion. But real healing begins in those very moments when you allow yourself to be still, to breathe without counting the seconds, to exist without purpose. You were never meant to be this efficient. You were never supposed to measure your worth in tasks completed or deadlines met. There was a time when we embraced stillness, when we valued wonder, contemplation, the slow unfolding of thought. But now even spirituality has become performance. Even reflection is monetized. The sacred has been rebranded into strategy. Everything that once nourished the spirit now serves the hustle. So ask yourself, when was the last time you allowed yourself to do absolutely nothing? Not meditate, not reflect, not journal. Just sit. Just be. Can you remember a moment when you weren't trying to improve or prepare or present something to the world? Can you recall a time when being was enough? That's the tragedy of modern life. We've lost touch with ourselves. In the quest to be more, we've become less. In trying to stand out, we've vanished from our own lives. We no longer live, we perform. And the audience is always watching, even when it's just us in the mirror. But here's the radical thought. You can choose differently. You can choose to stop, not forever, not dramatically, just long enough to remember who you are beneath all the layers, beneath the deadlines, the expectations, the digital applause, beneath the metrics and goals. There's a version of you still intact, still waiting, still whole. And it begins with permission. Permission to rest without earning it. Permission to breathe without guilt. Permission to say, no, I don't want to perform today. And if that feels impossible, then that's all the more reason to try. Because somewhere along the way you were taught that existence alone isn't enough. That joy must be justified. That calm must be productive. And that's the biggest lie of all. You were not born to be a robot. You are not a project. You are a person. Messy, complex, beautiful. And the world needs more of that. Not more polished brands, not more perfectly curated lives, but more real people willing to show up as they are, not as they're supposed to be. You are not a failure for needing a break. You are not weak for seeking quiet. You are not lost. You are awakening. And if this message resonates with something deep within you, something you forgot or buried or ignored, then stay with me. Because this is only the beginning. There's more to explore, more to unlearn, more to feel, and most importantly, more to reclaim. Not because you need to achieve it, but because you were never supposed to lose it in the first place. There's something powerful about emptiness, about a pause that stretches long enough to notice your own breath again. Not the silence we flee from with music or distractions, but that raw, unfiltered stillness that sits heavy in your chest and makes you wonder when the last time was that you truly felt present. Not productive, not useful, just here. But we've been taught to fear that stillness, to run from it. Boredom has been labeled the enemy, uncertainty a defect. Doing nothing? A cardinal sin in a culture that glorifies motion above meaning. But underneath all this movement, underneath the constant hustle, there's something you've been neglecting: yourself. There's a version of you that doesn't exist for metrics, a self untouched by the need to impress or outperform. That version used to surface when you were a child, staring at the ceiling, dreaming without deadlines. Or maybe when you sat in a field, watching the sky without a to-do list crowding your head. That you still live somewhere, but it's been buried under layers of noise and urgency. You didn't choose this noise. It was handed to you, drip by drip. From the moment you learned that being busy made you valuable, that praise followed productivity. That love came more easily to those who achieved. You absorbed it all, every expectation, every subtle message, every unspoken demand, until one day your identity fused with your output. And now not doing feels like disappearing. But pause for a moment and consider this. Maybe the most revolutionary thing you can do right now is nothing. Not because you're giving up, but because you're reclaiming your right to be, not to be excellent, not to be admired, just to be. Because the soul doesn't thrive on applause, it breathes in presence. There's an overlooked truth hiding in the discomfort of inaction. When you stop running, you finally hear the thoughts that were drowned out. When you embrace boredom, something strange happens. You meet yourself again, not the polished, performing version of you, the real one, the one with questions, with longings, with tired eyes and a craving for simplicity. Society will never give you permission to slow down. It won't congratulate you for choosing peace. There's no trophy for listening to your body when it begs for rest. But that's why this matters so much. Because breaking away from the machine takes courage. Refusing the race isn't weakness. It's a kind of wisdom, a quiet rebellion against a world that never stops shouting more. You don't need to fill every second. You don't need to constantly evolve. You don't need to become your best self every single day. Maybe your truest self isn't waiting at the top of some ladder, but right here, buried beneath all the striving. The part of you that remembers how to be still, how to feel without judging, how to exist without proving. But to reconnect with that part, you must first unlearn the lies. The lie that your worth depends on your productivity. The lie that happiness is something to be optimized. The lie that your identity is built through branding, through hustle, through flawless routines. These are not truths. They are cages dressed in the language of progress. We live in an age that celebrates choice, yet subtly punishes those who deviate from the script. It offers endless options, but only praises one kind of path: the busy one, the fast one, the visible one. And if you dare to choose slowness, simplicity, or softness, it tries to convince you that you've fallen behind, that you're failing. But what if failure isn't what you think? What if true failure is never knowing what it means to feel at peace with yourself? What if success is learning to stop without guilt, to breathe without rushing, to look in the mirror and recognize your own gaze again? This idea that doing less could actually bring you closer to wholeness terrifies a culture that profits from your restlessness. But you weren't born to be a cog. You weren't designed for endless improvement. You were meant for more than metrics, for more than likes and inbox zero and perfectly curated schedules. And no, you don't need to earn rest. You don't need to justify stillness with how hard you worked. You don't need to prove your exhaustion to be worthy of peace. Rest is not a reward. It's a necessity, just like quiet, just like feeling your own breath, just like remembering what it means to be human. There's a dangerous idea lurking beneath the surface of modern life. The belief that we must constantly push through, that strength means carrying on no matter what, that rest is indulgence, that slowness is shameful. But true strength sometimes means stopping. It means acknowledging pain. It means saying, "I can't," without apology. And when you finally allow yourself that honesty, when you admit that you are not okay, that you are overwhelmed, that you cannot keep pretending, it doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. And real is where healing begins. Healing is not another item on a checklist. It doesn't happen in bullet points. It's not a 10-step routine. It's slow, messy, non-linear. It requires space and quiet and a willingness to stop measuring, to stop performing, to stop managing your existence like a job. There's a gentleness you've forgotten, a softness toward yourself that got lost in the rush. You used to know it. It used to comfort you in childhood when simply being alive was enough. That gentleness can return, but it won't fight for attention. You have to meet it halfway, by pausing long enough to feel it again. It's okay if you don't know how to stop, if stillness makes your skin itch, if silence feels too loud. That discomfort is part of the journey. It means you're beginning to detox from the constant noise. It means your nervous system, so used to chaos, is learning to trust calm again. That takes time. That takes grace. You might feel guilt at first. A voice inside will say, you're being lazy, that you're wasting time, that you should be doing something. But let that voice pass. Don't wrestle it. Just observe it. That voice is not you, it's programming. It's residue from years of conditioning. And the more you notice it without reacting, the quieter it becomes. Eventually, you'll rediscover what it means to simply sit, to breathe without purpose, to walk without direction, to live without branding yourself. These are not losses, they are returns, a coming back to something ancient and essential. Because in the end, you are not your resume, you are not your calendar, you are not the total of your inbox, your follower count, your daily steps, or your latest accomplishments. You are not even your productivity. You are something deeper, something immeasurable, And when you strip away all the metrics, all the goals, all the expectations, you'll find it. That quiet, resilient self who was always there, waiting, watching, holding space for your return. That self doesn't care about your achievements. It cares that you're still here. It cares that you haven't given up on yourself. And that's where the real transformation begins. Not in acceleration, but in stillness. Not in ambition, but in awareness. Not in doing, but in being. You don't need to rebuild yourself. You need to remember yourself. Let go of the belief that your value lies in constant becoming. You are already enough, right now, as you are, flawed, tired, vulnerable, unfinished. Enough, not because of what you've done, but because you exist. So breathe, not to fuel the next sprint, but because breathing is beautiful. Rest, not to be better tomorrow, but because rest is sacred. Be still, not to gather energy for more hustle, but to finally hear what your heart has been whispering all along. You are not a machine. You are not a product. You are a soul with softness and depth and needs that go beyond optimization. And no matter what the world tells you, your slow moments matter. Your quiet matters. Your refusal to keep running in circles matters. Let this be the beginning of something gentler, something truer, a life that doesn't measure you by how much you do, but how fully you feel. A rhythm that honors rest, that welcomes stillness, that allows boredom, silence, slowness, all as sacred expressions of being. Because the most radical act in a performance-driven world is